Shalom from Israel, I'm Ariel Ben Avram. This week we read Parshat Vayechi. It's the last portion of the book of Genesis in the Torah. The narration of this last portion tells the death of Jacob, of our father, and the blessings that he gave to each one of his children. This is interesting because he starts blessing the two sons of Joseph, whom he considers his own children. So he basically told Joseph, these are not your children, these are mine. They're going to be part of the tribes in the land of Israel. They will receive their own portion. And he immediately began to bless them. The blessing is very, very interesting because he initially, at the beginning, he says something like, I will bless you to be abundant of the fish of the sea. Ephraim and Menashe, which is a very clear and direct blessing. So you will be abundant as the fish of the sea. He didn't say that to any of the other tribes, which makes us think about the future of these two particular tribes, Menashe and Ephraim. We all know that Ephraim and Menashe, as well as other 7 tribes, ended up assimilated. When we say end up, we're not talking about necessarily that they died or disappeared, although that is the way we perceive them. We consider that these tribes they disappeared, basically. They have assimilated into the nations, and basically we haven't seen them ever again. But let's not see it in a way of missing or disappeared. Don't see them in that way. Why? Because God in the Torah and our prophets remind us that they will be gathered by God in the end of times, when the Messianic era comes. So they're not really disappeared, because they're going to be retrieved, they're going to be rescued, bring forward by God at the end of times. So, but it's interesting because if they assimilated with the nations, as we will see later, we're going to read a verse regarding these blessings for these two particular tribes, Menashe and Ephraim. We have to understand that there is no such a thing as dispersion. Because if the tribes are going to be retrieved, rescued, gathered by God, then it's obvious to conclude that they haven't been disappeared. They never disappeared. So it sounds ambiguous, obviously, because if they disappear, we don't have Ephraim, Menashe, Gad, Issachar, Zebulon, Naphtali, Asher, and other tribes. We don't have them. We only see the tribe of Levi and the tribe of Judah. Now we know that Benjamin assimilated with the tribe of Judah, so that's why we count 9 instead of 10. Okay, so in other words, the nations that were separated from Israel, I mean, Menashe leading the kingdom of Israel in the north of the land of Israel, that they ended up, as we said, assimilated, among the nations. The Torah says here that they will be multiplied abundantly, like fish That's a lot of people. So we must understand this as an invitation to grasp this message as Israel among the nations. So it's like we don't know exactly who we are, who these Israelites are, but they are among the nations. And we will read this. This is very, very interesting. In chapter 19 of this portion, it says, but his father refused. It's like it was an issue because of the blessings of the sons, because Jacob Avinu, Jacob our father, blessed them in a different order. He gave the birthright, the firstborn right, to Ephraim instead of Menashe. So Joseph comes at a point and says, Father, this is not the way. And then Jacob answered. But his father, Jacob, replied, and he said, I know, my son, I know. He too will become a people, referring to Menashe. And he too will be great as Ephraim. But this younger, referring to Ephraim, brother, will be greater than he, referring to Menashe, the other brother. And his children, talking about the children, the descendants of Ephraim, will fill the nations. So there's a prophetic message here. The descendants of the tribe of Ephraim, will fill the nations. So the presence of Israel through the tribe of Ephraim and the so-called lost tribes, as we have mentioned, dispersed tribes, are going to be among the nations and will fill the nations. How do we understand this? This is very, very, very important. The presence of Israel always have been among the nations. So in other words, we stayed in the land of Israel, the kingdom of Judah, the tribe of Judah. That was the tribe that the official Jews who remained throughout history up until now. We know that. Now, we said that the other tribes, the 9 tribes, remaining tribes, led by Ephraim, dispersed among the nations, that we read here, that will fill the nations. It's the presence of Israel among the nations. So every nation in the world has a presence of Israel among them. It's like, of course, we don't see Jews, for example, just to put an example, China, okay, or Japan, or Australia, talking about the Aborigines, or Africa, or North America, the American Indians, or the South American Indians, Central American Indians. So we can understand this, that these Ephraim, these descendants of Israel, who fill the nations, exist in all these peoples that we just mentioned, that we don't see apparently Jews among them. This is how we understand this, because the Torah is telling us this, and his children will fill the nations. Now, some of our commentators, Rashi and others, they say the children's fame. So it's like the fame of the children of Benjamin, the children of Benjamin, or the reputation or the fame of the children of Benjamin will fill the nations. That's the way these sages want us to understand this. It's like, oh, the descendants of Ephraim are going to be famous among the nations. Let's say, for instance, North American Indians. Doesn't make that much sense. We're not saying that they're wrong. We have to be careful about this. It's an opinion. We in Judaism, in our debate to interpret, the Torah, the sages, is based on opinions. Some opinions prevail, but this opinion, this debate, this is very important. Now, some people follow certain opinions among the debate, and this debate is endless, by the way. It didn't end it with the Talmud. After the Talmud, there have been other people, Rambam, the Maimonides, other sages, Ramban, who have given opinions outside the Talmud. Opinions. So we choose what opinions we follow. So this is one opinion. The fame of the children of Ephraim will fill the nations. They're going to be famous among the nations. That's one opinion. We take it in the literal way. It's like, and his children will fill the nations. And we understand this as a prophecy from Jacob, our father, to the people of Israel, to his descendants. It's like the descendants of Menashe will fill the nations. Now, how we translate this in terms of our consciousness, that means that first we have to define what Ephraim and what Israel is among the nations. We're talking about positive qualities. In other words, we read the Torah, we read the Hebrew Bible, and basically we are the designed, the destined people to be the good guys. That's the idea. It's clear. Nobody can't deny this. Since the Torah is throughout history has been that way. So if we take that reference, okay, that Israel, the people of Israel, are the paradigm, the prototype of the goodness that God's one wants to prevail in his creation in this world, then the descendants of Israel represent goodness. That's the idea behind the Torah. That's why we're the light of the nations, for the nations. We're bringing the Torah, the knowledge of God's ways and attributes, God's decrees, will, based on the Torah. We make it prevail. We are the messengers. We are the people who receive the legacy, the inheritance of the Torah. God's will. So we implement that. And the mission is to tell the rest of the nation, the rest of the peoples, just try to be good. Be good for the sake of goodness. Goodness is the purpose of creation, of the material world, of humankind. And this is the way how to be good. So we are laws given by the Torah. So this is about goodness. We must have this clear. Now, that doesn't mean that every Jew is nice and good. We are not saying this. We're saying what we represent here. We are not that blind and that stupid to know that there's evil people who happen to be Jewish. We know that. Like in any other people, any other nation or race or whatever, religion, culture, whatever you want to call it. So, the point is to define by the Torah originally, the original essence, the original identity of a Jew. Goodness. It's a covenant with God to make goodness prevail. So, when Jacob our father, says that he will be greater, Ephraim, and his children will fill the nations. We're talking about the spark, the soul, the trait, the quality of goodness among peoples from all over the world. This is the part that is hard to understand for a lot of people. It's like, if we in the Torah as Jews are the representative, the ambassador, the messengers of goodness and to make prevail goodness, if we are assimilated, dispersed among the nations, this trait is among us, among all these nations, without necessarily being called a Jew. So, practical terms to understand this. The good people in the world, people who are intrinsically good, I mean, they are educated to be good and they remain good and they want to expand and make goodness prevail. They have this trait, this quality of Ephraim, this quality of Israel among their people. So eventually the good people are the ones who are going to gather at the end of time. That's the ones who are going to be gathered from all the nations and from every corner of the world, from whom all negative traits are going to be removed, or are already removed, or will be removed, be gathered in Israel to start a new era in which this kind of consciousness gathered by God, the goodness that we're talking about, is going to lead the rest of the nations. That's basically the essence of to understand, I mean, the whole point to understand the dispersion of the children of Israel and their ingathering into the land at the end of times, the Messianic era, the final redemption. So this is how we understand this. His children will fill the nations. So basically this implies that most of the nations were not necessarily good people, as we have seen throughout history. There's an evil trait in some cultures, peoples, that characterize them. That's the way they are. So throughout history we have seen that. Different empires, regimes, kingdoms that have distinguished themselves for being evil, for being wicked, for being cruel. We know that throughout history. And later, we have seen that the influence of the Torah, of Judaism among the nations, has changed that course, that attitude, that line, that orientation, that kind of expression of human consciousness. This has been a hard process in history to make people who are dedicated to be evil and do wickedness to change their approach to life. It hasn't been easy. If it has been easy, we probably now would have a better world. More cooperation, more brotherhood. But we don't see that precisely. But in some way we have to recognize that we have made some progress. I mean, the contributions of Judaism and the Torah to the development of humankind has given fruits. Not in the amount and the quantity that we would like, but we have. I mean, there's more knowledge, there's more ethics, there's more principles, values to promote goodness from Judaism than from other beliefs or religions. But that doesn't mean that there hasn't been religions who have not done that. Of course there are. But if we take in the Western world, for instance, the influence of Judaism in the development of human thought and goodness has been clear. Not as much as we would have wanted, but it has. Now the idea is that in our current times we see that it's in danger. Radical Islam, for instance, is one to make things worse. Go back 2,000 years back from where we were. And some totalitarian mentalities that still exist around the world. They don't want that. They don't want freedom. They don't want the expansions of goodness in human consciousness. They want human consciousness to be limited and restricted to certain being and doing in life. It's like killing the human spirit of diversity and human potential. We have to avoid that at any cost. So, this is a way that we want to share this time to understand that the children of the tribe of Ephraim will fill the nations. Interestingly, in the following verse 20 of this portion, the last portion of the Torah, we read that, so he blessed them. I'm talking about Jacob Avinu. We read that it's about Jacob Avinu. He blessed them on that day, saying, quote, with you Israel will bless, saying, may God make you like Ephraim and like Manasseh. And he placed Ephraim before Manasseh. So we bless our children, male children. May God make you like Ephraim and Manasseh. Why Jacob Avinu chose Manasseh and Ephraim and Manasseh to be the references for every Jew to be blessed? There are several reasons, but we're gonna focus on one, and it's the fact that Ephraim represents the birthright. So it's like when every Jewish child we bless, either if a firstborn or not, we bless him in the same way, because we inherit by the firstborn principle that we have mentioned before in other commentaries. Is our determination to be Jewish and to perform what the Torah wants us to perform, to be and do. So Ephraim is the firstborn line. So we are blessed to be like Ephraim and Manasseh. We're talking about the children of the firstborn, Joseph. So it's a blessing for the firstborn. Again, the birthright represents the determination to fulfill the covenant with God. That's what it represents, the birthright. So we have to be blessed to be the bearers of that determination to fulfill the covenant. That's very, very important. Then after that, Jacob begins to bless the rest of his children before he died. So after he blessed Ephraim and Manasseh, he called the rest of his sons. So, and he wanted to tell them, what would be He said, Jacob called for his sons and said, gather and I will tell you what will happen to you at the end of the days. But suddenly he didn't say that. So there's a lot of debate among our sages. It's like, what happened? He was going to say what was going to happen at the end, and suddenly he didn't say. So there's a lot of midrash, oral tradition, explaining why. Saying that initially he had the knowledge. He received the prophecy about what would be the end of times. And he wanted to share that vision, that prophecy with his children. But then God told him that's not necessary, don't tell them that. Because it was going to be in the Torah, it was going to appear in the book. So this is not about a beginning and an end kind of story. It's a process. So then he forgot the prophecy. So then he changed the subject and he started blessing Reuben, his first son, and continues the blessings of the rest of the tribes. Let's take some of them. In particular, the ones of Shimon and Levi. These two brothers, according to oral tradition, they were together most of the times. They were close to each other. They were the second and the third sons of Jacob in that order, Reuben, Shimon, Levi. And let's make a brief reminder of who were they. Remember that the episode in Shechem, when this prince raped Jacob's daughter Dinah, and Shimon and Levi took revenge, the two brothers. So Jacob Avinu make some kind of start remembering the episode in this blessing. That's what we mentioned, what happened before, so we understand the kind of blessing that they received both. Shimon and Levi are brothers. It's pretty evident they're brothers. But again, the idea here is to emphasize that they were together. They were together all the time. So Shimon and Levi were the ones who wanted to kill Joseph. So they were in the plot. So Reuben didn't want to, Judah didn't want it. So Judah suggested the sale. But eventually, at the beginning, originally, Shimon and Levi wanted to get rid completely of Joseph. So we have two precedents. We have the issue of Shechem with the rape of Dinah, and then we have the conspiracy to murder Joseph, the brother. Then the blessing starts saying, as we said, Shimon and Levi are brothers. Stolen instruments are their weapons. Now, this is very clear. It's like Osei is saying they were using instruments of violence that didn't belong to them. They were not part of their identity. This is very, very important. That's why we want to focus on these particular blessings, so we can learn something out of them. Our sages, Rashi and other sages, say that he was referring that the weapons were not theirs. They were the weapons of the peoples, the descendants of Esau, who were blessed by Isaac to live by the sword. So living by the sword is a blessing or a curse, wherever we want to take or understand it. that belong to the peoples, the descendants of Esau. Okay, so we don't want to live or die by the sword. That's not our blessing, that's not our curse. We have a complete different blessing. So the moment that we take weapons, swords, to live by and die by, those are not our weapons. Those are not our blessings or our curse. Somebody else's. So this is the blessing that Jacob is giving to Shimon and Levi. It's like, you are not this kind of people. You are not violent people. Your weapons are not yours. They're stolen. You stole them from somebody else. So the blessing is a reminder to Shimon and Levi, you have to be Israel's blessing, not Esau's blessing. You are not wicked, you are not evil. Don't practice that. Don't do that. Don't be that. So it's a blessing not to be. It's quite a good blessing, telling us not to be who we are not. We are not violent. We are not evil. We are not wicked. We are not destructive. We don't hate. We are not born to hate. Our heritage, our blessing is to love, not to hate. Therefore, whoever hates, in this case, in the case of our tradition, Esau's descendants, those are the ones who hate, not us. So then we have to embrace our true essence and identity, Israel's identity, which is our connection with God. That's our identity. That's what I have to be and do. So, let my soul not enter the council. It's like, if these two guys are conspiring to do something evil, I don't want to be in there. That's what Jacob Avinu, Jacob our father, says in his blessings. Like, if you conspire to do something different than who we are, don't count me in. I'm not there. Meaning that in the future, there were future conspiracies between the two of them, Shimon and Levi. So Jacob knew by prophecy, these people are going to be troublemakers in the future. Therefore, I don't want to be part of that. So don't mention my name if there's a quarrel, if there's a dispute or a conflict. And eventually that happened later. We're not going to get into that because it's going to be too long. So, let my soul not be in the council, my honor. You shall not join their assembly. For in their wrath they killed a man, and with their will they hamstrung a bull. The bull is referring in this case, the symbol of the bull, as we have said before, is Joseph. So they hurt the bull, and they killed a man. So we're talking about pretty violent people here. So Israel doesn't want to be part of that. It's like, yeah, you're my children, however, I curse that negative attitude of yours. I don't want to be part of that. I don't want to be counted in your assembly or your council. That you guys kill people and you guys hurt other people. So it's cursing the negative tendencies in consciousness represented by these two gentlemen. Actions. Not them particularly as person, but what they had in their consciousnesses. Because essentially we're good. The idea is to pursue goodness. Not to reject goodness and embrace wickedness. That's not our purpose here. Not for Israel, not for everybody, anyone. So this is a reminder. So in this case, the blessing is don't be wicked, don't get trapped in the negative trends in consciousness. The moment that you get involved in that thing, I'm not there. And we're talking about Israel, we're talking about the goodness that we were talking about before. Goodness cannot blend with the wickedness, it can't be. It's a common sense thing, by the way. It's like, if I'm defining myself as a good person and pursuing the goodness, I cannot be associated in the council or assembly of negative people or evil people, violent people. That's exactly what he's telling us here. So you are my children, you are good, you have to be good like me, you have to honor my legacy. Stop being like that. Stop being negative. Cursed be their wrath. So he's cursing the negative tendencies in consciousness. He's not cursing the children. He's saying, hey, all the negative things that you guys have and these negative tendencies is cursed. I don't want it. I'm not condoning violence and wickedness and evil here. I'm cursing that. That's what Jacob, our father, is doing here in this blessing. So the lesson here is like, these negative tendencies in consciousness are a curse. They are. Therefore, we have to get away from them. They're curse. That's the lesson here. And their anger, the wrath and their anger, because it is harsh. I will separate them, talking about Shimon and Levi, throughout Jacob, and I will scatter them throughout Israel. So our sages, what does that mean? So first is Shimon, Jacob. We see that there are two levels of consciousness. The consciousness of Jacob, which is the determination, as I say, the firstborn, the birthright, the determination to pursue goodness. And Israel as the manifestation of the goodness. So this is like a pre-state and a post-state. That's what are Jacob and Israel. They're part of the same person. So it's the determination, the tendency, the natural tendency to do goodness, and the goodness manifest after that determination. So it's not enough to have the determination and the willingness and the motivation, but the ability to make it happen, to make it true. So, throughout Jacob, it's like this level of learning, of getting ready, of understanding what is our purpose in life. That's Jacob. That's where Shimon is coming in. So they, our sages, say that this scattering of Shimon there refers to teaching the knowledge about life, like science, justice, laws, the human consciousness needing the right knowledge to survive in the material world. Now, we can see, but how about the Torah? Isn't that knowledge? Yes, of course. All this knowledge is coming from the Torah, but it's applicable to the basic things to survive, like mathematics, for example, like geography, like science, basic science, like observing how the world works, that kind of knowledge, which is not separated from human consciousness and from the Torah. Actually, the Torah encourages us to learn about what we see around our environment. So that would be Shimon. So Shimon would be the teachers, the school teachers. Okay. And Levi will be scattered throughout Israel. Now, what Levi represents, Levi, as we know, is the priesthood, represents the priesthood. What is the priesthood? The knowledge of our permanent connection with God. That's why they work in the temple. The Temple of Jerusalem, as we have said many times, we will be saying it, represents our awareness of the permanent connection that we have with God. So the Levites are the ones who guard that connection. Those are the ones who are going to be scattered throughout Israel. Those are the ones who are going to make sure to secure the connection, the permanent connection of the rest of the tribes of Israel with God. So the priesthood is very, very important throughout the history of the Jewish people. Because through the priesthood we secure our connection with God. So there's a Levi in each one of us, as well as there's a Benjamin, there's a Menashe, there's an Ephraim, there's a Judah, there's a Joseph. All these 12 qualities, creative, positive potentials that we have in consciousness, represented by the tribe of Israel, are in our own consciousness, individually and collectively as Jews. So we have to secure the Levi inside of us, to secure that connection with God, our individual and collective connection with God, which is again is the level of the manifestation of goodness, Israel. So the preparation, the determination to be good, Shimon in this case, Jacob in this case, and the manifested goodness, which is Israel. So the Levites are going to be scattered among the manifestation of goodness. So they're going to secure, the Levites secure that manifestation. Then after that, the next blessing, because it's coming in order of age, starting with Reuben. The next one is Judah, which is a royal blessing. It's like Judah is the culmination. That's why the messianic consciousness, the Jewish Messiah, comes from the line of Judah. It's the reigning, the prevailing consciousness that God wants to prevail in the material world. So Judah is that consciousness, that awareness, that regency to make goodness prevail, reign in all levels of consciousness and all facets and dimensions of life. So that's referring to Judah. Then it continues with the following son Zebulun will dwell in the coast of the seas. He will be at the harbor of the ships, and his boundary would be at Sidon. Sidon is a port which is now in Lebanon. So Zebulun represents, in this case, a traveler, a sea traveler, which our sages relate to as like the kind of commerce, the ability of commerce among the Jews. So people had the ability to go on the seas to trade, to do business, basically. So it's like as we said, every tribe of Israel has a particular quality. But those qualities are inside of every Jew. So Zebulun will be in the seas, and his brother Issachar is going to be next to his neighbor. Later, at the end of the book of the Torah, at the end of the book of Deuteronomy, Moshe, our teacher, Moshe Rabbeinu, gives blessings regard to these two particular tribes, brothers, as working together. While one is involved in business, the other one is teaching Torah. So they have this association, which our sages say and emphasize is very important, that should be the kind of connection, the kind of relationship that every Jew has to have. The ones who are involved in material issues like commerce, like mundane kind of things in life, and the one who are involved with the spiritual ones, the Torah study, together. So one is supporting each other, one materially and the other one spiritually. So that can happen. And that's the way it should be for every Jew, that we help each other in every way, both materially and spiritually at the same time, enriching each other's life for the purpose of goodness and the purpose of connecting and being constantly united with God and His will. That's the idea. Then it would continue with the tribe of Dan will avenge his people like one people, the tribes of Israel. So they say that Dan is like the one who is an expert in laws and justice. You know, like it's gonna be like in a courtroom, the judges are gonna be the Danim, coming from Dan. Some people also say that Dan is also related to some kind of warrior like Gad, also the tribe of Gad. Dan will be a serpent on the road, a viper on the path, which bites the horse's heels, so his rider falls backwards. Now the idea is like when we make prevail justice, everything negative falls down. Why? Because we make truth prevail. That's the purpose of justice, of being a judge. Provide and rule with justice. So it's like a snake. We have to understand it, the imagery here, is about, a horse, which is a bigger horse, a strong horse, and a little one that is a snake, which is able to bite a big one, a strong one, like a horse, and make it fall. So in other words, in this case, the horse would represent something in some way, like the sensual, and in some cases, not necessarily negative, but these trends in human consciousness that make us behave in a way which is contrary to justice. It's like our desires to make our own egos, fantasies, and illusions be fulfilled at the expense of other people, versus the sense of justice, of not doing that. So it's like the serpent in this case, it would be like the rule, the right way to do it, and the horse is the reckless ways to be. That's the idea. For your salvation I hope, O Lord. So it's interesting that Jacob Avinu make a pause here and say, I hope that you save me. It's like we're talking about a judge here. Like the descendants of Dan are judges, and then he's stopping for a moment, our father Jacob, and says, God, be my savior. So it's like judge is the greatest, biggest judge ever. So it's like he feels that reminder of justice. And then our father Jacob says, for your salvation I hope, O Lord. So it's like, be a good judge to me. Judge me fairly. Judge me with redemption, with freedom, with all the goodness that you want God to prevail in this world. Okay, so let's leave the commentary here. We don't want to extend too long. Just reflect again in our Jewish identity, because all this final portion of the book of Genesis is about the Jewish identity. It has to do with our blessings. It has to do with who we are. It has to do about our future as a nation, as an individuals. So let's reflect on this individually, studying in a personal study of the Torah, and try to regain that consciousness of who we are. Where are we dispersed, scattered among the nations? What is that quality that is Jacob? What is that quality that is Israel? What are those 12 archetypes, those potential creative positive qualities in consciousness that we have to unite around our connection with God? That's why all the tribes used to come together to Jerusalem to bring the offerings. They came together united. So it's like all levels, all potential, creative potentials in consciousness gather together, united for the purpose of fulfilling God's will. That's Israel. That's the legacy. That's our essence and identity. That's our purpose and our destiny. That's what we are and what we're supposed to be and do. So I wish you a extremely blessed rest of the week, a restful and insightful Shabbos, Shabbat Shalom, and see you next week.